Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Vivian and I work with the Human Rights, Big Data and Technology project at the University of Essex, which is funded by the UK Academic and Social Research Council. Today I want to talk about AI and human rights. If you bear with me, I'll walk you through it and hopefully not trip over this wire. So privacy is the thing that usually comes to mind when we talk about the impact of big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, smart technology, etc., or in general technology. And I think privacy has had a very important place in this conversation because it has triggered discussion in society about the impact of technology on different areas of our life. And at the same time, whilst there are specific effects on privacy in and of itself, one thing that is less talked about is how that connects to other issues. And today I want to talk about this example in relation to privacy. Continuous positive airway pressure. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this in the news in the last week or so, but CPAP machines, as they're known, are meant to help patients of sleep apnea to maintain their airways open in the night when they're sleeping. And what it has been reported last week was that these machines are meant to help patients and doctors monitor the condition. But the very data that these machines record is actually also being sent to the medical supply providers that have made these machines, and furthermore, onward to insurance companies, which then in turn affects the insurance premiums that these individuals have. And this effect isn't necessarily disconnected from privacy, because if you think about it, this personal data, this health data is very personal. And so what I want to demonstrate through this example is the fact that privacy can have a gatekeeping function to other areas of our life. And the second thing that often comes up in this area about the impact of AI on us is about discrimination and equality. And the example that has come up a lot in this week as well is the investigation done by ProPublica on machine bias. And I'm not going to talk about that because others have talked about it. What I want to focus on in illustrating this is this example on universal credit. The UK has recently initiated this to unify the payment system for Social Security. And what it does is that it is digital by default, so all the claims will be processed online. And what it has been criticized on is that it creates a digital barrier to the provision of public welfare because it assumes that there is universal access to the devices, platforms, and applications required to even access these systems. And it also conducts risk-based assessment to automate the distribution of the benefits. And its approach in doing this is a test and learn, quote unquote, by the UK Department of Work and Pensions. It's a test and learn approach. And if we stop and think about it for a second, the people who apply for child, housing, job, and other benefits are those people in our society who are experiencing positions of vulnerability. And what this means is that whilst they're in those positions of vulnerability, they also experience the greatest harm, the greatest risk to harm to them as a result of this digital social experiment. And so this brings me to my first overall point, that because human rights are universal, indivisible, interdependent, and interrelated, it gives us a lens to appreciate these connections between privacy and discrimination that are often talked about with our other rights, such as health, such as housing, such as work. But that's not the only areas that are affected in our lives. So, for example, in education, we have now, thanks to AI and other technology, the development of adaptive learning tools that can help to give more specific ways of delivering education. But if we reflect on that for a second, do we want that to displace established pedagogical practices? If we look at work, the fact that we have the automation of hiring practices, or the use of some automation in hiring practices, in filtering candidates, in the delivery of job advertisements, means that some of us are filtered and excluded or ranked, lower ranked on the basis of categories such as gender, race, age, etc. And while certain tasks and jobs have been automated increasingly, the full extent of how it affects the labor economy is still very unknown. And AI has also been used to assist older persons with personal assistance. And this can be useful if we think about the contribution that it has for independence and autonomy and dignity. But at the same time, if we reflect on that as well for a second, then it actually could result in greater exclusion from society and greater isolation. And also, furthermore, create a system for total surveillance by virtue of the fact that there's a constant monitoring system. And on health, AI innovation for various healthcare technology has really grown exponentially, from the detection of malaria to the diagnosis of certain skin conditions, etc. It's used increasingly. But that technology also requires sophisticated architecture, which not necessarily every economy has existing at the minute. And if we think about that, that means that it creates even more disparities between and within societies that have access to be able to leverage on such technology. And the increasing privatization of that also means that the affordability of healthcare is a big question, which threatens the equal access to healthcare. And in law enforcement, very recently, we see the use of live and automated facial recognition to identify certain individuals at large events. For example, in the UK, this has been happening. And what this does is it has not created something new, but made what is existing even more concerning, because what it does is matches with existing databases. And it makes us question, well, how far do we want to use such a system? How far do we want to bring them, really? And the last example on this slide is about opinion and expression. Cambridge Analytica and Facebook is another example that has come up several times in this conference. And the point I want to make here that links to that and other examples like it is the fact that these platforms that we use today, these private companies, the internet intermediaries that control and host such content, are increasingly becoming the arbiters of free speech, because these platforms are becoming the modern public square by which we communicate, organize, mobilize even. And so that effect means that it affects how we develop ideas as individuals, and also the democratic development of society in general. Which brings me to my second point. The content and the scope of human rights, ranging from civil, cultural, economic, political to social, means that it offers us a lens to interrogate more deeply on a right-by-right basis as well, on top of the connected effects, the specific effects of AI. And in the global landscape that we have today, we are connected not just by the international, regional, and other institutional architectures that we have. We are connected very much by technology today, which are invested and supplied by businesses which share data, produce data, and consolidate data. And the third point that I want to talk about is the fact that human rights has the answers as well. It includes the tools and mechanisms for accountability that we can use. How so? First, human rights has specific obligations for states to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights. And it also includes certain parallel responsibilities for businesses as well. Two, it has mechanisms to prevent and mechanisms that have oversight and monitoring and remedies for violations of these rights that allow us to activate it at various stages from design and to deployment of AI systems. Three, the fundamental principles in human rights means that we can rely on things that are not so contestable, like transparency, like empowerment and participation and inclusion, that could help us contribute towards accountability. And in my view, these should be implemented in the IA space just as it is in other spaces. This is a very important year for human rights because it's the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration for Human Rights. And I think we should take a step back and reflect and and think about what we want the future to be. And I think we want the future to be one that we think about instead of letting it run away with us without thinking about it. And I think human rights is part of the answer. Thank you.